I slammed my palm on the desk, rattling the keyboard. The video looped again. My face, my voice, my gestures, every intimate flicker of expression, consolidated into a montage so convincingly real that even I questioned its authenticity. The woman on the screen was me, but not me. Every movement had been stitched from hours of stolen footage, then repackaged into a scene I'd never filmed. Me whispering lies, confessing betrayals, committing acts of cruelty I never dreamed of. My name is Carmen Alvarez, and until 10 minutes ago, I was respected. A mid-40s consultant known for integrity in a small but tight-knit community. A single mother who balanced boardroom dinners with bedtime stories. A woman who'd poured sweat and years into building her reputation, brick by careful brick. Now, I starred in a grotesque parody that had already gone viral. My pulse hammered in my ears as I scrolled through the comments. She's a monster. Fired her on the spot. Who does she think she is? The words scrolled faster than I could delete them. Screenshots were everywhere, tweeted, reposted, shared. My LinkedIn profile was flooded with messages demanding I explain myself. My phone vibrated on the desk until my arm ached, each buzz another accusation. I pressed my forehead to the cool metal of my laptop's lid and shut my eyes, willing the scene away. But the echo of that video, the convincing cadence of my voice admitting things I'd never done, pounded in my skull like a war drum. I leaned back, fingertips brushing my temples. The office wall to my right bore framed accolades: Consultant of the Year, Community Leadership Award, Excellence in Ethics. They mocked me now, relics of a past I feared might no longer exist. My breath hitched as anger and fear knotted in my chest. How dare they steal my face? My truth? The audacity of someone thinking they could dismantle my life with a few keystrokes and a vile imagination. I opened my eyes, wiped a sheen of sweat from my upper lip, and stared at the screen again. This deepfake was a masterpiece of malice, and it was only the beginning. Because if I let it stand unchallenged, it would ruin every relationship I'd ever nurtured. My daughter would whisper that her mother was a liar. My colleagues would avoid me in the hallways. My boss would call with a hollow voice and say, "I'm sorry, Carmen. We can't have this on our reputation." No, not on my watch. I slid out of my chair and paced the length of the cramped room, mind racing through scenarios, going to the police, hiring a cybersecurity expert, confronting whoever had orchestrated this. But who? A disgruntled ex? A rival firm? An anonymous troll with a vendetta? I had no proof, no clues, only a wrecking ball disguised as a video. I pressed my hand against the window pane and watched traffic flow beneath, oblivious to my crisis. Horns honked, people bargained at the corner cafe, and somewhere a child laughed. The world kept spinning as if nothing had happened. My knuckles whitened on the glass. If I let the world believe that garbage, I'd disappear, erased and replaced by a fabrication more believable than the truth. Back at the desk, I opened a clean document and titled it Project Reclaim. Beneath, I typed, "Capture full deepfake video metadata. Legal counsel for defamation suit." My fingertips trembled with purpose. The checklist alone felt empowering, a blueprint for battle. I shut the looped video tab and opened a fresh browser, searching for the nearest cyber crime unit. I bookmarked a dozen firms specializing in AI forensics. I drafted an email to Maria, a lawyer I trusted, explaining the assault on my identity and begging for guidance. Then I paused. I tilted my head, listening to the soft murmur of the air conditioner, the distant chatter from the hallway. In that stillness, I felt the first flicker of something fierce and unyielding. The taste of vengeance was iron-strong on my tongue, and I wanted it. I would not be a victim. I would not shrink into the shadow of some anonymous hacker's lie. I would expose the truth, piece by piece, like a surgeon extracting a tumor. I would trace every frame, every code, every malicious intent back to its source, and I would make them pay. My heart surged. The shock began to recede, replaced by resolve. I closed my laptop with deliberate finality. Tomorrow, I would start pulling threads. Tonight, I regrouped. I did not yet know how deep the conspiracy went, nor how many allies it would take to dismantle it. But I did know one thing: they had picked the wrong woman to cross. And I would light up their lies like dynamite until nothing remained but the shattered pieces of their deceit and the undeniable truth of who I really am. I drifted into a restless sleep, my dreams haunted by that distorted version of me, smiling one moment, hissing the next, a puppet on invisible strings. When morning light finally seeped through the blackout curtains, I felt both drained and electrified, as if I'd passed through a crucible. I forced myself out of bed, cinnamon coffee already percolating in the kitchen below. There would be no self-pity. I had work to do. The first order of business was digital forensics. I logged into my computer and dialed up Dr. Lin, the cybersecurity specialist whose reputation for unraveling complex hacks was unmatched. We'd met years ago at a tech conference, and I trusted her fiercely. When she answered, her voice was brisk but warm. "Carmen," she said. "I got your email. Send me everything you have, original clip, timestamps, anything you can grab." "I'm uploading it now," I replied, clicking through folders as I sifted metadata. "I need you to tell me how deep this goes, who did it, where it's hosted, and what traces they left behind." "Understood. I'll start analysis immediately. Expect a preliminary report by tomorrow." I exhaled, both relieved and anxious. Tomorrow felt like an eternity away. I needed anything today. Next, I called Maria, my defamation attorney. Her line went straight to voicemail, so I left a terse message: "Deepfake attack on my reputation. Urgent counsel required. Please call." Then I flagged the message as high priority and texted her assistant to follow up. As the day wore on, I scoured social media threads, hunting for the original upload and any seeds of the video's origin. I followed comment chains into private groups, traced reposts on encrypted platforms, and even poked around dark web leak forums. Every link I clicked felt like stepping deeper into a labyrinth. So far, all I'd found were dead ends, anonymous accounts, VPN-masked IPs, fragmented file names. By mid-afternoon, fatigue slammed into me like a rogue wave. I pushed away from my desk, grabbed my leather jacket, and stepped outside. The city's pulse hit me immediately, cars honking, street vendors shouting, the scent of grilled tacos drifting from a corner cart. Life teemed just out there, oblivious to my crisis. I inhaled deep, tasting possibilities. If I couldn't find the perpetrator online, maybe I could find clues in the real world. I drove to the downtown co-working space where I'd held consultancy meetings. The lobby receptionist, Carla, recognized me instantly. She'd heard the buzz. "Crazy deepfake thing," she said, lowering her voice. "People are talking." "Anything specific?" I asked, offering a tight smile. "Just gossip. Who hates you enough to do this, and bet it's someone in your circle." Her shrug was sympathetic but useless. Still, I thanked her and left, mulling over her words. Someone in my circle. That cut deep. Betrayal rarely comes from strangers. Back in the car, I scrolled through my contact list, ex-business partners, old classmates, even that bitter rival from my last big contract. I tapped on a few names and left cryptic texts. "Need to talk." "Secure channel." No explanations. Just urgency. By dusk, 4 people had replied: Angela, the marketing director I once mentored; Raj, a former client with a sketchy reputation; Simone, a colleague who'd been angling for my promotion; and Luis, my daughter's father, once a friend, now a distant acquaintance. None volunteered more than a curt "when," but each response felt like primed gunpowder. I set up encrypted video calls, one after another, under the guise of Project Reclaim Update. Angela joined first, her face solemn. "Carmen, I am so sorry," she said. "I saw the video this morning. It's horrible. I have no idea who'd do this. I need to know if you noticed anything unusual on your end: emails, links, attachments from me," I asked. She shook her head. "Nothing. But my assistant did mention a strange file request for raw footage last week." I thought it was a marketing thing. I leaned forward. "Do you have logs?" "I'll check." Next, Simone hesitated when I pressed. I was surprised you phoned me of all people," she stammered. "Why me?" "Because you know if anyone had motive," I said flatly. "Check your send items. Did you have any correspondence with Camshift Productions or Samir Khan?" Her eyes flickered. "I'll look." But Carmen, whatever this is, I'm with you. By the time I'd spoken with Luis, the sun had dipped below the skyline. His call was abrupt. Carmen, I don't know what this is about. Think, Luis. Anyone asking you for footage of me from 10 years ago? Wedding videos, conference panels, anything. He went silent. Finally, actually, a message from someone named Jade asking for raw conference tapes last Tuesday. I thought it was spam. I swallowed a thrill. Not a full break, but a thread to pull. My final call was with Raj. He answered on the third ring, his face half-lit by laptop glow. I hear you're in trouble, he said. You know why? I recited the details of the deepfake. His expression wavered between remorse and calculation. I might know who did it, he admitted. But getting that info will cost you. A finder's fee, let's say. I sucked in a breath. Blackmail on top of defamation. Perfect. Tell me how to reach them, I said. And send whatever you have by midnight. He agreed, though I could practically hear the smirk. I shut my laptop and sat in the dark, neon city lights flickering against the window. A web of deceit was wrapping tighter around me, anchored by anonymous handles, Camshift Productions, Samir Khan, Jade. Now I had a lead, raw footage requisitions, suspicious file requests. A digital breadcrumb trail. I stood and walked to my daughter's room. She was asleep, her hair a halo on the pillow. I brushed a strand from her forehead and whispered, I'm coming for you, sweetheart. I'll fix this. Downstairs, I flipped on a single lamp and opened a fresh document titled Project Reclaim, Clue Log. Underneath, I listed Camshift Productions, inquiry on raw footage from Angela's assistant. Samir Khan, alias requesting conference recordings from Simone. Jade, messenger to Luis requesting wedding tapes. Raj's informant, wealthy patron with pay-to-play info. Each line felt heavy with promise and peril. I closed my eyes and imagined the labyrinth unraveling, each clue a thread leading back to the mastermind. The clock ticked past midnight. My eyes stung, mind spinning with possibilities. I could call Dr. Lin for an update, but I resisted. Her report tomorrow would lay the forensic groundwork. My leads tonight would expose the human operators. I flopped into bed, phone beside me with notifications muted. In the quiet, I could almost hear the faint clicks of servers, the ghostly keystrokes of the faceless villain weaving my undoing. But I would catch them. Piece by piece, pixel by pixel, I would expose every lie and every liar. I would draw their convictions out into the light until their secrets burned bright and clear. And when I did, when I finally stood before them with the irrefutable proof in my hand, they would wish they'd never dared to steal my face. Because I was Carmen Alvarez. And I was just getting started. Dawn's first pale light trembled against my blinds when I stirred again, but sleep felt like a stranger now. My mind buzzed with the breadcrumbs I'd gathered, Camshift Productions, Samir Khan, the alias, Jade, and Raj's shadowy tipster. Each name was a key if I could just unlock the right door. I fired up my laptop and reviewed Dr. Lin's preliminary report. Lines of code scrolled beneath her annotations. The video had been spliced from 3 separate camera sources, my TEDx talk, a webinar for clients, and a news interview I'd given 2 years ago. She'd traced the upload to a server cluster in Eastern Europe, relayed through at least 5 VPNs. The metadata shown a faint trail, the original encoding timestamp, a borrowed email address, and a single IP that hadn't gone through the usual obfuscation. I leaned forward, eyes narrowing. That lone IP, when I ran it through a geolocation service, it pointed to a small office building in Prague. But IP addresses lie. Someone had deliberately left that breadcrumb, hoping it would mislead pursuers. I would not be misled. Next, I skimmed the logs Raj had sent, a PDF of chat transcripts between his informant, apparently a local media broker, and a user named Hexa. Lines hinted at negotiations, payment in cryptocurrency, promises of ultimate scandal content, and a tag reading, Project Mirage release on June 28th. The broker had asked for access to raw, unedited footage to craft the deepfake footage that only someone close to me could provide. Someone in my circle, I muttered, recalling that receptionist's gossip. Circles can be tight, friends, colleagues, even family acquaintances. I opened my contacts and examined each recent exchange for irregularities. I decided to call Simone first. Her name floated at the top of my list. Not only had she asked awkward questions about my promotion, but she'd also been the only one who grew defensive when I pressed her about Camshift Productions. If she'd given them footage, it might have been an illicit scoop for her own gain. I dialed her number. The line clicked. She answered, voice wary. Carmen. Simone, I need to verify something, I said calmly. Did you personally send any conference footage to a SamirCon or Camshift Productions in the last month? Her breath caught. No, of course not. Why would I? I clicked open the file Simone had emailed me last week, a zip folder labeled Keynote Raw, containing a single WAV file and a text transcript. No video. But Raj's logs mentioned video files. Something didn't add up. Check your sent folder, I pressed. Especially any large attachments. There was a long silence. Finally, okay. Give me a moment. I heard the faint sound of her fingers tapping keys. When she spoke again, her tone had shifted. Carmen, there's one. It's a link to a cloud storage. I thought it was for editing, so I uploaded a 4K recording of your keynote last Tuesday. Who requested it? I asked. She hesitated. It came from a Jade. I assumed it was your new assistant. My blood ran cold. Jade? That was the same alias Luis's message had used. I made a note. Jade, fake assistant. Simone's naivete had handed over one of the source videos. I pressed, do you still have the link? The emails? Yes. Relief colored her voice. I'll forward everything now. I hung up and opened my inbox. Within seconds, Simone's email arrived. Headers, timestamps, IP addresses. I exported the email source, revealing a sender address masked behind a domain registered 2 weeks ago. No name attached, but the originating IP pointed to a co-working space in downtown Austin. I stared at the screen, a real-world location at last. Not Prague, not Eastern Europe, it was here, in Austin, perched inside a co-working hive. My heart hammered. The person who orchestrated this was on my home turf. I grabbed my keys and jacket. I needed boots on the ground. If I could identify who'd logged into that co-working network, I might find Jade. Traffic throbbed as I drove the half-hour to the hub, Nexus Collective on West 6th. It was a glass-and-steel building pulsing with freelancers and startups. I breezed past the barista and security badge checkpoint with a feigned forgot my pass act, enough to get me a temporary visitor badge. Up on the 3rd floor, I found the network office, a windowless room lined with server racks and a lone IT tech draped over a caffeine-fueled coding session. Excuse me, I said, catching his eye. I'm sorry to bother you, but I need to verify a login from last Tuesday, specifically an upload from Camshift Productions. It's urgent. He looked at me, then at my badge mockingly. You're not listed in our system. Look, it's personal. I need your help. I can compensate you for your time. His gaze flickered from my determined face to the badge and back again. Follow me, he muttered, swiveling to a terminal. He typed a few commands. Here, he said, pulling up a log of guest Wi-Fi connections. Camshift Productions used guest 2 network on June 20th at 3:14 p.m. The device was named Jade's MacBook Pro. MAC address matches this entry. He slid a printout across the desk. Jade's MacBook Pro. A borrowed device name, but whose? The serial number was logged. We needed to match that to a person. Can you tell me who registered that device? I asked, voice low. He frowned. Guest network doesn't require registration. But the device also pinged our printer and coffee machine's wireless sensors. Those logs give a username, Adelstein. Adelstein. The name jolted me. Adelstein. Who did I know with that last name? A little knot tied in my stomach. My daughter's godfather, Peter Adelstein, a well-connected real estate investor who'd helped me land a major contract 2 years ago. He had access to every demo reel, every raw clip I'd ever shared. And motive, he'd lost that contract to me. My jaw tightened. Could he have orchestrated this out of revenge or greed? Or was he a pawn in someone else's game? Either way, I now held a name. I slid the printout into my tote and thanked the tech. Outside, The afternoon sun glared, as if celebrating my breakthrough. I called Dr. Lin back, reading off the MacBook serial so she could cross-reference firmware and any linked accounts. Then I dialed Maria. This time, her voice answered immediately. "Carmen?" "Peter Adelstein," I said. "I need to subpoena his device logs and email records." There was a pause, then a click as she added notes. "Understood. I'll draft the motion. We'll have it filed by tomorrow." I ended the call and exhaled. The puzzle was becoming clear. A deepfake built from my own footage, stitched by operators using Simone's and Luis's inadvertent uploads, orchestrated through a device, Adelstein's MacBook, within Austin. The final piece would be unraveling Peter's role. I pictured him, suave and confident, strolling into a boardroom as I'd once seen him do. The thought sent a thrill of righteous anger through me. Back at home, I poured a glass of water, then pulled up my project reclaim clue log. Underneath, I added Simone's upload via Jade alias to Camshift. Luis's footage requisitioned by Jade. Peter Adelstein's MacBook on guest 2 network. I tapped at the list. 3 threads converging on one man. Tomorrow, I'd confront Peter. First, through legal channels, subpoenas, and depositions. Then, if necessary, face to face. My pulse quickened at the thought. The moment of reckoning was approaching. I closed my laptop and turned off the lamp. In the dim glow, I could almost feel him, the strategist behind the scenes, believing himself untouchable. But he hadn't counted on me. And I would make him sorry. The sun had barely risen when I found myself back at my kitchen table, its surface strewn with printed subpoenas, email headers, and the log from Nexus Collective. My hands hovered over the documents, adrenaline spiking as I prepared to summon Peter Adelstein's digital fingerprints into the daylight. Confronting him would be like walking into a lion's den, his power and influence practically radiated from every boardroom story I'd ever heard. But I had a weapon stronger than intimidation, irrefutable evidence. By 8:30 a.m., Maria's assistant had delivered the filed motion for discovery, stamped and official. I tucked a copy into my tote, my battle flag. Then I called Dr. Lin to coordinate. Once Peter's device logs arrived, she'd compare firmware signatures and embedded metadata against the deepfake files. If his MacBook truly carried the malicious code, there would be no escape. My first real-world step was to get close to him without arousing suspicion. I booked a strategy meeting at the investment firm where he sat on the advisory board, a high-end cafe across the street from his office. I dressed deliberately in business casual elegance, black slacks, crisp white blouse, hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. I didn't want to look like someone bristling with vengeance. I wanted him to think I was there on cordial terms. Inside the cafe, I chose a table with a clear view of the entrance. Steam curled from my latte as I rehearsed my lines. Small talk about potential partnerships, probing questions about his recent projects, subtle inquiries that would elicit nervous tics. My phone lay face up, ready to record the moment he betrayed guilt or surprise. At exactly 9 a.m., he walked in tall, impeccably tailored, confidence practically radiating off him like cologne. His eyes scanned the room until they settled on me. He offered a polite, practiced smile and approached. "Carmen," he said, extending his hand. "It's been a while." His voice was warm, measured. I slid into the chair opposite him, matching his composure. "Peter," I replied. "Thank you for meeting me." I clasped his hand a moment longer than necessary, then let go. "I've been reviewing our past collaborations. Your insights on the Brookside deal were invaluable." His brow rose. "I remember. You made it a success." He sounded genuine enough. I let him stew for a beat. "I wanted to discuss something more personal," I said softly. "You see, recently someone manipulated footage of me into a deepfake video that's gone viral. It's destroyed my professional credibility." I paused, watching his reaction. His jaw worked, but he said nothing. I slid my tote aside and extracted the Nexus Collective printout. Parts of this video were stitched together using raw footage that only a handful of people had access to, footage you helped me secure for that keynote last month. I tapped the paper. This MacBook Pro was on the guest network where those uploads originated. The device name was Adelstein. The serial number and the network logs point to you. His face paled, but he covered it with a blink and a slow exhale. Carmen, I don't know what you're implying. He leaned back, feigning calm. I loaned you my laptop because yours was in the shop. I had no idea anyone used it for whatever this is. I unfolded the subpoena. This isn't a friendly chat. This is a legally binding notice for your device logs and email records. If you're truly innocent, you'll comply. If you're not, I will prove your involvement and the involvement of anyone who colluded. I let the weight of that sentence hang between us. The cafe's ambient jazz seemed to fade. He swallowed hard. You're bluffing, he muttered. I met his gaze, unwavering. Call my lawyer and ask her. Check with Maria. This motion is on file. And Dr. Lin will testify that the code camouflaged in those video bytes matches firmware unique to your machine. I'm not bluffing, Peter. His eyes flicked to the paper, then to my phone. I tapped the record button, though the display was off. Everything you say and do right now is on the record, I added. He ran a hand through his hair, face tightening with anger or fear, probably both. I need time to review this, he stammered. Let's reschedule. No, I said, voice low but firm. We finish this today. I reached into my tote and produced printed email headers, Simone's forwarded request from Jade, Luis's cloud storage link, the chat log from Raja's broker. I have the full chain of custody. Every file request, every alias, every suspicious IP trace. You can walk me through your version, if you like. If you weren't involved, tell me now before I release this to the press. His pride shattered. He exhaled, shoulders slumping. You think I did this? His voice cracked. After everything I've done for you? Prove it, I challenged softly. Tell me who engineered Project Mirage. I want names. He closed his eyes as if bargaining with himself. It wasn't me, he said finally. But I know who it was, someone operating under my radar. A partner who wanted to sabotage you because you outmaneuvered him on a deal. He glanced around nervously, voice dropping. His name is Lucas Renner. He works in my circle, real estate, invasive tactics. He thought destroying your brand would destabilize our firm and make me look weak. He used my laptop because he knew I'd never incriminate myself. I let that settle. Lucas Renner, another lead. A bigger target, but one whose motive made sense. Financial revenge. And Peter's cooperation now opened a new front. I wasn't dealing with a lone hacker or a faceless troll. This was corporate warfare. I leaned forward. Lucas Renner, I repeated. Where do I find him? He exhaled, defeated. He's at Renner and Company downtown. 3rd floor. I can give you his direct number. I pulled a pen from my purse and scribbled the info. Thank you. You'll need to provide depositions. And if you helped conceal any evidence, you'll be complicit. I slid the subpoena across the table again. Your compliance begins now. He nodded, eyes haunted. I understand. I stood, pocketing my pen. Good. We'll talk again soon. As I walked away, I felt the familiar surge of purpose, electric and unrelenting. Peter would help me close in on Lucas, and Lucas would bring me to whoever ordered the deepfake. Piece by piece, the conspiracy unraveled. Outside, the morning air felt sharp and promising. I'd forced the lion to reveal his paw. Now I would track down the jackal pulling the strings and make sure everyone who had a hand in this paid for what they'd done. Because I was Carmen Alvarez. And I would not be silenced. When I'm ready, I'll unmask Lucas Renner and expose the full truth in a blaze they'll never forget. Lucas Renner's high-rise office looked like a shrine to arrogance, wall-to-ceiling glass, polished marble floors, and a single abstract painting that might as well have been a middle finger. I rode the elevator up, dossier in hand, heart hammering with anticipation and righteous fury. The final confrontation was at hand. The door to Renner and Company's suite stood ajar. I slipped inside, scanning the open-plan office. Employees froze mid-keystroke, their eyes widening as I passed. In the center, Lucas sat behind a massive mahogany desk, swiveling in his chair, surprise flashing across his lean features. Carmen, he said, all smooth charm. To what do I owe this pleasure? I set my tote down and extracted the subpoena, placing it on his desk with a deliberate thud. You know why I'm here. He smiled thinly. I've heard allegations. Allegations backed by Peter Adelstein's testimony, by Simone's and Luis's metadata, and by Dr. Lin's forensics. I laid out the folder of evidence, server logs, email headers, VPN traces linking his IP to the upload, plus the matching firmware signature from Peter's MacBook. Lucas's smile flickered. You're blowing this out of proportion, he said. I leaned in. Tell me how you orchestrated Project Mirage. His posture stiffened. The self-confidence that buoyed him in boardrooms faltered now. He ran a hand through his hair. All right, he said finally. I did it. But hear me out. I crossed my arms, voice low. I'm listening. He exhaled. You outbid me on the Brookside redevelopment. You won the municipal grant. My investors suffered a harsh lesson in humility, and their losses were on my head. I couldn't just let that go. And you thought destroying my reputation would force me out of the market, I said. A 70% rent hike, a deepfake scandal, 2 devastating blows in 1 week. You wanted me broken. He nodded reluctantly. I hired Hexa, a dark web broker I found through someone in Prague. They built the deepfake, seeded it on social media. The rent hike notice was your landlord's doing. He was a silent partner in the plan. I fronted the costs so no paper trail would lead back to me. My blood boiled. You used an entire community's housing stability as collateral in your power play. Lucas's shoulders slumped. Yes. I crossed a line. His gaze flickered toward the subpoena. But I underestimated you. I straightened, fury and triumph coursing through me. You want a confession? You have it. Now you'll testify under oath, surrender your email records, and finance damages for every tenant and every lost contract. And you'll issue a public apology or face the full weight of the courts. He exhaled, defeated. I'll do it. I pulled a press release draft from my bag, a concise statement detailing the deepfake scheme, naming Lucas and his co-conspirators, and outlining the restitution plan. I slid it across his desk. Sign here to authorize immediate release to all major outlets. His hand hovered over the line, guilt and resignation on his face. He signed. With that, the truth was set free. Within hours, headlines blared, real estate tycoon admits to smear campaign against consultant, and deepfake scandal, victim reclaims reputation. Tenants of East Austin cheered as the news reached them. Colleagues and clients flocked back, offering apologies and renewed trust. My LinkedIn notifications turned from condemnation to praise. Resilience personified. You're an inspiration. Well done. That evening, I walked through my front door to find a bouquet of white lilies and a note from Maria. Congratulations on vindication. Your strength is extraordinary. I placed the flowers on the kitchen counter and sank onto the stool, exhaustion finally catching up with me. I thought of my daughter, asleep upstairs, and felt a surge of peace. The battle had been brutal, but justice had prevailed. I'd exposed the lies, dismantled the conspiracy, and reclaimed my life. Later, I stood at my window, watching the city lights glitter against the dark sky. The world would never be quite the same, not for me, nor for the people I'd rallied. But sometimes, that's how change begins, with a single act of defiance, a refusal to be silenced. I closed my eyes, feeling the steady beat of my heart. I was Carmen Alvarez, scarred, resolute, and free. And though the road ahead might hold new challenges, I knew I would face them on my own terms, unafraid and unbroken.